Right now, somewhere in the Middle East, a missile is being launched. An alliance is being formed. A border is being disputed. A city is bracing for what comes next. The cameras are rolling. The world is watching. And almost no one is asking the question that actually matters. Why here? Why always here? Not today's answer. Not the political answer. Not the answer you'll find on the news. The real answer. The one buried more than 2,500 years in the past. Before the oil fields. Before the colonial borders. Before the modern nations and their flags and their armies. There was a land so perfectly positioned on the face of the earth that every empire in history has been drawn to it, conquered it, fought over it, died for it. And the story of why that land became the eternal battlefield begins not with a war. It begins with something far more powerful: geography. Before we step into that story, subscribe to the channel if you believe the past still holds the answers to the present. Because here at Secrets of the Ancient World, we don't just study history, we live it. To understand why the Middle East has never known lasting peace, you first need to see what it looked like at the beginning. Not rubble, not conflict, not fire, something else entirely. Picture the most important intersection in the ancient world. 3 continents meeting at a single point. Europe to the northwest, Asia stretching endlessly to the east, Africa pressing in from the south, and between them, a narrow corridor of land. Not a barrier, a bridge, the only bridge. For thousands of years, this was the only place on Earth where 3 continents touched, where ideas from one world could flow into another, where goods traveled from distant civilizations and met in open markets, where merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, and conquerors all passed through the same roads, the same ports, the same mountain passes. This land was not just valuable, it was irreplaceable. And replaceable things can be abandoned. Irreplaceable things are fought over forever. But the geography was only the beginning, because beneath this land, beneath the deserts and the river valleys and the ancient trade routes, lay the most fertile soil the ancient world had ever seen. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in the land the Greeks called Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, something extraordinary happened 10,000 years ago. Human beings stopped wandering. They planted seeds, they built walls, they stayed. And from that decision, the entire ancient world was born here. The first cities on Earth rose from this soil: Uruk, Ur, Nineveh, Babylon. Not villages, not camps, cities, with markets and temples and palaces and streets. Writing was invented here. The first story ever recorded came from this land. The first law code, the first mathematics, the first astronomy, the wheel, the plow, the calendar, all born here. All spreading outward from here to the rest of humanity. This was not just a crossroads, this was the cradle, the place where civilization itself took its first breath. And that made it the most coveted land in the history of the world, because whoever held this crossroads held the keys to everything. Now, here is where the story turns, because all of this, the rivers, the fertility, the perfect geographic position, also made the Middle East something else. A prize, the greatest prize any conqueror could imagine. And in the 6th century BC, one man decided to claim it. His name was Cyrus, and he would change the world. Cyrus came from the Persian highlands of what is now modern Iran, a land of harsh winters and brutal summers, of warriors who knew how to survive in conditions that would kill most men. When he took the throne of a small Persian kingdom called Anshan around 559 BC, no one was paying attention. The great powers of the age, Babylon, Lydia, Egypt, Media, barely noticed him. They would spend the rest of their lives regretting that, because Cyrus was unlike any ruler the ancient world had produced. Most conquerors of the ancient world operated on the same principle: destroy, terrify, enslave. Cyrus understood something deeper. Terror can build an empire, but only administration can sustain one. He began by absorbing the kingdom of Media, not through massacre, but through alliance and political brilliance. Then he turned west to Lydia, the kingdom of King Croesus, the man whose name was synonymous with wealth itself. Croesus consulted the famous oracle at Delphi before going to war with Persia. The oracle told him, "If you cross the river into Persian territory, a great empire will be destroyed." Croesus smiled. He assumed it meant Persia. He crossed the river. His army was crushed within months. The great empire that was destroyed was his own. Then Cyrus turned south. Babylon, the greatest city on earth, protected by walls 60 meters high, surrounded by a vast moat, stocked with provisions for years, garrisoned by one of the most experienced armies in the ancient world. Every conqueror who had ever attempted Babylon by force had turned back. Cyrus did not attempt it by force. He diverted the Euphrates River. His engineers dug channels that lowered the water level of the Great Moat. And on the night of a Babylonian festival, when the city felt safe behind its walls, when the guards were distracted and the wine was flowing and no one was watching, Persian soldiers waded through the shallow river and entered Babylon from below. 539 BC, the greatest city in the ancient world fell without a battle. And what Cyrus did next shocked everyone. He spared it. He did not burn Babylon. He did not enslave its people. He did not tear down its temples. He walked into the city as a liberator. He freed the peoples Babylon had enslaved, including the Jewish people, held captive for decades. He returned sacred objects to their temples. He honored local customs. He presented himself not as a foreign conqueror, but as the rightful king, chosen by the gods of Babylon itself. The clay cylinder he left behind, inscribed with his proclamations, is considered by many historians to be the world's first declaration of human rights. And the empire he built, the Achaemenid Persian Empire, was only just beginning. At its absolute height, under Cyrus and his successors Cambyses and Darius the Great, the Persian Empire stretched from Egypt in the west to the Indus Valley in the east, from the steppes of Central Asia to the shores of the Arabian Sea. 5 million square kilometers, perhaps 50 million people living under a single government, at a time when the entire human population of Earth was barely 100 million. The Persian Empire contained roughly half of all the human beings alive on the planet. This was not just an empire. This was a world. And at the center of that world, connecting every part of it, making it function, making it breathe, was the Middle East. The crossroads, the bridge, the heart. Darius the Great understood this better than anyone. He built the Royal Road, a highway stretching over 2,700 kilometers from the capital Susa to the Aegean coast. Relay stations every 25 kilometers. Fresh horses always waiting. Messages that crossed the empire in days. A message from India could reach the Persian king faster than any communication system would manage for the next 2,000 years. The Eye. Same roads carried caravans loaded with silk, ivory, lapis lazuli, gold, and spices. Trade flourished. Cities grew. Wealth poured in from every direction. But those roads carried something else too. Armies. The same network that made the empire wealthy, made it militarily unstoppable. Taxes paid for roads. Roads enabled trade. Trade created wealth. Wealth funded armies. Armies protected roads. A perfect, self-sustaining circle of power. And it all depended on one thing: control of the crossroads. If you are fascinated by how ancient empires shaped the world we live in, leave a like on this video. It helps more history lovers find this channel. But no empire expands forever, and no circle of power, however perfect, is truly unbreakable. As the Persian Empire pushed westward into Europe, as its armies crossed into the Greek world, it collided with something it had never encountered before. Not a bigger army, not a more powerful king, an idea. The idea that free men fighting for their own land fight harder than any conscript army in the world. The Greek city-states were not a unified civilization. They were dozens of independent, fiercely proud, perpetually arguing city-states. Athens and Sparta hated each other almost as much as they hated any foreign power. They fought over philosophy, over politics, over everything. But when the Persian army arrived, something happened that almost no one expected. Some of them chose to stand together. In 490 BC, the Persian king, Darius, sent an army across the Aegean Sea. His goal was simple: Punish Athens for supporting a rebellion against Persian rule. Send a message. Submit, or be destroyed. The Persian army landed at Marathon, a coastal plain northeast of Athens. The Athenians were outnumbered, outflanked, almost alone, and they charged, at a full run, directly into the Persian lines. What happened next echoed through history. The Persians broke. The most powerful military force on earth turned and fled to their ships. Word was sent back to Athens. Victory. But Darius was not finished. He died before he could return. His son Xerxes was determined to finish what his father had started. In 480 BC, Xerxes assembled the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen. He was so determined to cross from Asia into Europe that he built a bridge of boats across the Hellespont, the narrow strait separating the two continents. When a storm destroyed the first bridge, Xerxes reportedly had the sea itself whipped 300 times as punishment. Then he built a second bridge and marched his army across. The Persian force swept through northern Greece. City after city submitted, but at a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, 300 Spartan warriors led by King Leonidas stood in the way of the entire Persian army. 300 men against hundreds of thousands. They held for 3 days. 3 days. When the Persians finally found a hidden path around the pass and surrounded them completely, every Spartan chose to stay, to fight, to die where they stood. They were killed to the last man, but they gave Greece time to prepare. And at the naval battle of Salamis, the Greek fleet, outnumbered, outgunned, lured the Persian navy into a narrow bay where the massive Persian warships could not maneuver, and destroyed them. Xerxes watched his navy burn from a golden throne on a hillside overlooking the sea. He retreated. He never came back. And in that moment, in the smoke, above Salamis in the wreckage of the Persian fleet, something was born that still shapes the world today. The idea that the East and the West are different worlds, worlds that do not simply coexist, worlds that compete, that clash, that fight for dominance over the same lands, the same roots, the same resources. The conflict between Persia and Greece was the first great clash of civilizations, and the Middle East was where it happened. Comment the word empire below if you believe ancient. History explains the conflicts of today. I want to know how many of you see the connection. But history does not end with a single battle, or even a single war. The Persian Empire survived for another century and a half after Thermopylae, still the largest empire on earth, still the wealthiest. But its time was running out, because in the small kingdom of Macedon, on the northern edge of Greece, a boy was growing up who had read every account of the Persian Empire, who had studied its roads and its armies and its cities, who had dreamed since childhood of standing in the palaces of Persepolis. His name was Alexander, and at the age of 20, he became king. At 22, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia. He had 37,000 soldiers. He was marching against an empire of 50 million people. Every military mind of the age thought he was either insane or suicidal. He was neither. Within a decade, he had conquered everything: Egypt, Persia, Mesopotamia, Central Asia, the borders of India. He never lost a single battle, not one, but more than the conquest itself. It was what Alexander carried with him that changed the Middle East forever. Greek language, Greek architecture, Greek philosophy, Greek ideas about science, medicine, and the nature of the universe. Suddenly, the ancient cities of the Middle East had theaters and gymnasiums and libraries. Greek became the common language of the entire known world, not just in Greece, in Egypt, in Persia, in Mesopotamia, in Judea. When the New Testament was written centuries later, it was written in Greek, because Greek was the language everyone understood. Alexander died young. His empire fractured. His generals divided it and spent decades tearing each other apart. But the Middle East was transformed forever. It had become a crossroads not just of trade routes, but of cultures. Greek philosophy meeting Persian administration, meeting Egyptian religion, meeting Babylonian astronomy. And from that collision came one of the most creatively explosive periods in human history, the Hellenistic age, an age that gave the world the Library of Alexandria, the calculation of the Earth's circumference, the foundations of modern mathematics, the earliest principles of physics, born here, in the Middle East, at the crossroads. Then came Rome, the Roman Republic, and then the Empire, looked east with the same hungry eyes every great power had used before, and found what every great power found: the same land, the same geography, the same irreplaceable position at the center of the ancient world. Rome and the Parthian Empire, the successor to Persia, stared at each other across the rivers of Mesopotamia for generations. Neither could destroy the other. Neither could dominate the other. The Roman general Crassus marched his legions east to break the stalemate in 53 BC. He was surrounded and killed at the Battle of Carrhae, one of the worst military defeats in Roman history. The Middle East had broken. Another army swallowed another empire's ambitions. The pattern was becoming clear. Every civilization that reached for this land discovered the same truth. You can conquer the Middle East, but the Middle East will never simply submit. It absorbs you. It exhausts you. It outlasts you. Rome and Parthia fought on for centuries. Then Parthia became the Sassanid Persian Empire. Rome became the Byzantine Empire. And the wars continued. Two exhausted giants bleeding each other dry over the same desert sands. Their last great war lasted 26 years, from 602 to 628 AD. Both empires ended it on the verge of total collapse. And then, from a direction neither of them had ever worried about, from the deserts of Arabia, a land both powers had dismissed as irrelevant, a new force emerged: Islam. In less than 20 years, the Arab armies of the early Islamic caliphate destroyed the Sassanid Empire entirely, drove the Byzantines out of the entire region, and took control of the crossroads. For the next several centuries, Islamic civilization built something remarkable in the heart of the Middle East: a golden age. In Baghdad, the Abbasid caliphs built the Round City, a circular capital of perhaps 1 million people, the largest and most sophisticated city on earth. The House of Wisdom translated every text that could be found: Greek philosophy, Persian astronomy, Indian mathematics. The number 0 came to the Western world through Baghdad. Algebra was invented here. The word itself comes from the Arabic al-jabr, medicine, chemistry, navigation, optics. While most of Europe was struggling through centuries of political fragmentation and economic decline, the Islamic world was building the foundations of modern science. The Middle East was, once again, the center of human knowledge, the center of global trade, the center of the known world. But the crossroads could never rest, because the crossroads had never been allowed to rest. In the 11th century, a new power began to move from Central Asia: the Seljuk Turks. They swept into the Middle East with an army of steppe warriors, took control of Baghdad, and pushed all the way to the gates of Constantinople. The Byzantine emperor sent a desperate plea to Rome: "Help us, or the East falls." The Pope answered. In 1096, the First Crusade was launched. Hundreds of thousands of European warriors marched into the Middle East. They called it liberation. For the people who lived there, it was invasion. For nearly 2 centuries, European crusader kingdoms existed in the heart of the Middle East. Jerusalem changed hands, cities burned, entire populations were massacred. And when the great Muslim commander Saladin finally recaptured Jerusalem in 1187, he did something that shocked the European world. He spared the lives of the Christian inhabitants. He allowed them to leave, because he understood something the Crusaders had never grasped. This land did not belong to any single conqueror. It never had. It never would. Then from the east, something far more terrifying arrived: the Mongols. In 1258, the Mongol army under Hulagu Khan surrounded Baghdad. The caliph refused to surrender. The Mongols destroyed the city. In a matter of days, somewhere between 200,000 and 800,000 people were killed. The great libraries burned. Centuries of accumulated human knowledge floated down the Tigris River. The water turned black with ink. It was the single greatest cultural catastrophe of the medieval world. And yet, the Middle East survived, because it always survived. Within 2 centuries, the Ottoman Empire rose, one of the most sophisticated and durable empires in human history, founded by Osman Fur in 1299. It would last, in various forms, for more than 600 years. At its height, the Ottoman Empire stretched from Hungary in the north to Yemen in the south, from Algeria in the west to the borders of Persia in the east. In 1453, Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II rode into Constantinople on a white horse. The Eastern Roman Empire, which had endured 1,000 years after the fall of Rome itself, ceased to exist. The Ottomans now controlled the crossroads completely. Every trade route between Europe and Asia passed through their hands. European merchants paid Ottoman tolls for access to Eastern goods. Those tolls, that simple economic chokehold, are the reason Christopher Columbus sailed west in 1492. The reason Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa. The age of exploration, the discovery of the Americas, the circumnavigation of the globe, all of it driven in part by the Ottoman Empire's control of the Middle Eastern crossroads. Once again, the geography of this land had changed the entire course of human history. If this story is opening your eyes to how deeply the past shapes the present, share this video with someone who needs to see it. By the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was dying. 600 years of empire, and now the edges were crumbling. Nationalist movements from within, military defeats from without, economic pressures from every direction. In 1914, the Ottoman Empire made its final fatal decision. It entered the First World War on the side of Germany. 4 years later, the war was over. Germany had lost, and the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist. What happened next would not just affect the Middle East. It would create the Middle East as we know it today, and it would plant the seeds of almost every conflict you have ever seen on the evening news. British and French diplomats sat down with maps of lands they had never visited, maps of peoples they barely understood, maps of communities whose languages they could not speak and whose histories they had never studied, and they drew lines, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, straight lines, geometric lines, lines that cut across ancient tribal territories through sacred landscapes, dividing communities that had lived together for centuries. Syria and Lebanon went to France. Iraq and Palestine went to Britain. The borders they drew created nations that had never existed before. Iraq, for example, was assembled from 3 distinct Ottoman provinces with entirely different populations, histories, and identities, forced into a single country, under a foreign-imposed king, by 2 men in an office in London. Those borders have been disputed and fought over ever since. And then, just as the new map was being drawn, just as the ink was drying on the colonial agreements, something was discovered beneath the sand: oil. In 1908, oil was found in Persia, then in Iraq, then in Saudi Arabia, then across the entire region. The substance that fueled the engines of the 20th century, the substance that powered factories, armies, automobiles, and airplanes, the substance without which modern industrial civilization simply could not function. The crossroads that had been fought over for 2,500 years because of its geographic position was now also sitting on top of the most valuable natural resource on Earth. Suddenly, every major power in the world was not just interested in the Middle East. They were dependent on it, existentially, absolutely, inescapably dependent. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union played out in large part as a shadow war over the Middle East. Both superpowers supported governments and overthrew them. Both funded armies and armed their enemies. The Shah of Iran was backed by the West. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 brought him down. Saddam Hussein was supported by the United States against Iran, then invaded by the United States when he threatened regional stability. The same strategic logic, the same geographic imperative, the same ancient competition over the crossroads. Different flags, different languages, different centuries, the same war. Now look at what those decisions created. The borders drawn by strangers a century ago have never been accepted as legitimate by the populations forced to live within them. Ethnic groups that were split across multiple countries have fought for recognition ever since. Religious communities that had coexisted under Ottoman governance found themselves suddenly minorities in new nations built around rival identities. The partitioning of the region did not end the competition for the crossroads. It simply added new fault lines to ancient ones. the oil that made the Middle East indispensable to the modern world also made it a permanent target. Because as long as the global economy runs on fossil fuels, the nations that sit above those reserves will never be left alone. The Persian Gulf is not just a body of water, it is the artery of the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply travels every single day, is the royal road of the modern age. The same logic that made Darius build his highway system, the same logic that made the Ottomans control the trade routes. Geography, unchanged, inescapable, and the people of the Middle East, caught between the geographic destiny of their land and the ambitions of powers that have always wanted to control it, have paid the price that people in crossroads have always paid, in blood, in displacement, in the constant exhausting weight of living at the center of everyone else's ambitions. Today, the Middle East is still one of the most watched regions on Earth. The headlines change, the names of the leaders change, the weapons become more sophisticated, but beneath every modern conflict, beneath every missile strike and every peace negotiation and every broken ceasefire, lies the same story that began 2,500 years ago. A land so perfectly positioned that no empire has ever been able to leave it alone. A crossroad so valuable that generation after generation of rulers, Persian, Greek, Roman, Arab, Crusader, Mongol, Ottoman, British, American, Soviet, have decided it was worth any price to control it, and the people who have always lived there have always paid that price. The Persians are gone. Alexander's empire dissolved within a generation of his death. Rome fell. The caliphates fragmented. The Crusaders were expelled. The Mongols retreated. The Ottomans vanished. The British Empire collapsed. The Soviet Union dissolved. But the land remained. The geography remained. The crossroads remained. And the struggle for it never ended. So the next time you see a headline about the Middle East, the next time you watch footage of a conflict in a city whose name you can barely pronounce, the next time a politician explains the crisis in terms of ideology or religion or terrorism, ask yourself a different question. Who has wanted this land before? What did they call themselves? What did they say they were fighting for? And how different really is the answer from what you're hearing today? Because history is not something that happened to other people in a distant past. History is the architecture of the present. The borders we fight over today were drawn by strangers a century ago. The rivalries we call modern were forged in ancient courts. The roads that armies march along today were first laid down by Persian engineers 2,500 years before the first tank ever rolled. The Middle East has been a battleground for so long, not because its people are different from us, but because the land they live on is unlike any other land on Earth, and the world has never stopped wanting it. I'm your guide through the ancient world, and together, we uncover the secrets that explain today. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the past through new eyes, because here at Secrets of the Ancient World, where ancient history comes back to life, the story is never truly over. It's still being written, right now.